Is it not written in your law that ye are gods? You understand what I'm saying? So it just depends on what level you on based on, whether you're human or whether you're immortal.
At ease. It's your boy Soul Immortal. Man, a brother commented on my video, a video I made a few weeks ago. It had to be about 1 o'clock this morning. And the brother said, Soul, you know, I've been watching your channel, man, since you had like a couple of hundred subscribers on your first channel. So he's talking about back in 2016, right? And he says, brother, you know, how did you do it? Like how did you go from that state you were in to where you are now, right? And I was like, bro, that's the good question, man, because there are a lot of things that you know I talk about, but there are a few things that I don't talk about, right? So today, brothers, I'm going to tell you exactly how I cracked the code, right? See, you have to understand the power of both the first person and the third person. See, when I talk about the creative process, you have to be in the first person because that's when emotion kicks in. And I've talked about that. But what I haven't talked about is the power of the third person. I'll cut my ringer off. Right? So you got to look at it like this. You know, when I talk about the power of the third person, you have to look at it like this. You know, imagine, you know, a football coach, right? Now most football coaches, you know, they analyze, you know, their games in a matter of quarters, right? You know, they start a game, they look at the first quarter, second quarter, halftime, they go in, they reposition everything, come out third quarter, fourth quarter, right? The better coaches, they can look at their life as a complete season, right? So they have more data to make choices, right? But the greats, I'm talking about, you know, your Eddie Robinsons of Grambling State. I'm talking about your Don Shulers of the 72 Dolphins, right? These guys have the ability to submerge themselves completely in the third person, right? And they can completely separate themselves from themselves, right? So these they can look at their complete career. So they have more data, right? So that's what I started to understand, man, the power of the third person, right? Because see, if I think about my life, the last 4 years of my life have just been like boom, taking off. Year after year after year. Everything's gotten better, right? But it wasn't until I could separate myself from myself, you know, before that started happening, right? Because this is what I mean, right? So like I said, the last 4 years have been good. Before that, everything was choppy. It was kind of up and kind of down, kind of up and kind of down. And the thing is, what I was doing, I was looking at my life in quarters. You know, I was just looking at my surroundings and making my decisions based off that. You know, once I began to get a little bit more understanding, I could look at myself, you know, as in a season, you know, pretty much annually. You know, at the end of the year, I could make an assessment on what I did good, what I did bad, and try to make moves going toward the next year, right? But when I snapped out of it, when I woke up and submerged myself in the third person, that's when I could completely look at my life over the last, you know, 20, 25 years. And at that point is when I can say, you know what? Now I can see my overall game plan. Now I can see what's been winning, you know, what's been causing me to lose. And now I can make better decisions to, you know, to completely take my life in an upward position consistently. Now, the first thing that I would notice after I placed myself in the third person, right, was I could easily see the pattern, right? I could easily look at the last 20, 25 years and see when the hard spikes were coming in my life, right? So what I had to do as the coach of my life, right, was go to the moments right before the spike. You know what I'm saying? In other words, right before things went from being crappy, you know, to going good, what was taking place during those moments, right? So I went back to 2009. And you've heard me talk about this on my older videos. 2009, lost my job and got divorced on the same day. You know, money was crazy. Lights were off. I was pawning stuff in my house just to eat, right? And on October the 19th, 2009, I found myself I found myself pacing around my house with a loaded weapon, ready to just end it all, man. I was just simply tired of playing the game, right? And in about, I want to say about 60 days after that, you know, I found myself, I own my own company. I opened a trucking company called Straight Path Trucking, right? And that company was generating anywhere between $7,000 and $10,000 a month off the bat, right? So I was looking at those moments, right? I fast forward to 2012. You know, I was working as a district manager for oil and gas outfit in East Texas. I was living in Shreveport, Louisiana. And looking back on it, now I can tell that I was just going through a state of depression, man. I just, you know, put myself in a box and isolated myself away from the world. And just instantly, man, my life just took off, right? And then I fast forward to 2015 before I moved to Dallas. Life was doing some funny things, man. I was getting in a bad state, and all of a sudden life again just shot up hard, right? So again, the first thing I had to do was look at, you know, the moments before this takeoff, right? And analyze that, right? Now let me say this. I'll say this. And I've made a video about this before. You know, a lot of people look at hard times as a negative. But like I've always said, like a lot of you know, older philosophers say, there's some good in everything. So even in the bad situations, you have to extract the good, right? So again, I went back to those scenarios, and I would say, what was taking place before life took off, right? And I noticed that all three of these things had one thing in common, and that one thing was suffering. Yes, the first thing I noticed in all three of these scenarios when my life took off was that just before life took off, there was a level of suffering, right? Because you have to understand this. You have to understand that a lot of times we're being put in bad, you know, situations in life, but because that's just God trying to get us to the point where we can hear. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to understand, you really have to understand how the mind and body works, and how important, you know, our dopamine levels or the way our dopamine is channeled, you know, as far as that being tied to success, right? See, a lot of reasons why most brothers don't succeed is because their dopamine is just all over the place, right? Because think about this. When you think about social media, when you think about posting pictures and getting likes and getting comments and getting, you know, feedback on certain events in your life, brother, you're getting a dopamine hit, right? When you think about inviting those young ladies over on the weekend, right? Y'all just kicking it, right? And you smashing, right? You talking about hella dopamine. You know, when you're talking about alcohol, when you talk about, you know, drugs and all these things we use as vices, we have to understand that the reason we're doing these things is because these are the least paths of resistance to get that dopamine fix. Because that's really what happiness and joy and all that stuff is tied to our dopamine levels, right? So what I observed is that, you know, just before my life had taken off, I was in a state where I had really nothing else to give my dopamine levels to, right? Back in 2009, I had absolutely nothing, right? So all of my dopamine was channeled toward bettering myself. You know what I'm saying? When I went back to 2012, when I was going through that depression, all of my dopamine was channeled toward, you know, getting to the next level. Same thing in 2015, right? So how I hacked the system, guys, was simply, you know, self-induced suffering. Because you have to understand, what I had identified is that the common denominator between every time my life elevated, right, was pain and suffering, right? So if pain and suffering was the common denominator, that must mean that suffering was my cheat code. Going back to dopamine, right? You have to think about our lives as men on a daily basis, right? So we get up in the morning and we go to work, right? The whole time you're at work, you're on the gram, you're seeing all these women with the cheeks out, you're seeing all this stuff. You might be back and forth with your girl throughout the day, texting, and you're getting all these dopamine releases. I mean, all these sensations, right? You get off work and you go eat dinner, right? You go get your big T-bone steak and shrimp, the whole nine, right? Again, this good meal is just releasing so much dopamine in your system, right? You get home and wifey or your girl is waiting on you, right? She's in the bed, man, and she puts it on you. Again, ample amounts of dopamine are released. So at the end of the day, say it's around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and your day is pretty much complete. Now it's time to get on your grind. Now it's time to work on that business. Now it's time to build your legacy. And you're done for the day. Why is this? It's because you're satisfied. It's like your dopamine has been active all day. It's like you're good. It's like if I can get this every day, then I'm good. But what happens if you put yourself in a position where that dopamine isn't released all day? What happens if you just maintain yourself in a certain zone throughout the day, so in the evening you get home, you're still yearning for this sensation, this joy? Brother, I'm telling you, you can direct all of that toward your dreams and your goals. See, what we have to understand as men, right, is that there are only 2 seasons in our life. We have the sowing season and we have the reaping season. Of course, the sowing season is when we're doing everything in our power, to plant the seeds to get ahead of life. And of course, the reaping season is when we, enjoy the fruits of our labor. Now, for the last 2.5, 3, maybe 4 years, I've been in a reaping season. But here over the last several weeks, almost a couple of months, I've been slowly transferring back to my sowing season. Now, what does that mean for me, guys? And this is my hack, guys. This is how I hack life. I've completely eliminated, the pleasures of my life. In other words, I'm not doing any dating. I'm not having any sex. I'm not drinking any alcohol. My diet is restricted to only a few items, right? In addition to that, guys, I'm following the recipe verbatim. I'm telling you guys, this is life's hack. This is the cheat code to everything. Because again, you have to understand that once you eliminate the pleasure in your life, your dopamine is going to be seeking nothing but higher levels. I'm talking about showing you, levels, how to get your finances up, but primarily how to increase yourself on a spiritual level, guys. I'm telling you. You can even go back. You can even go back to the Bible, when it talks about the prophet going through the wilderness, when it talks about him going through his 40 days and 40 nights, right? See, a lot of people think that was some kind of testing ground, like God was trying to see, if Jesus was worthy of all these things. No, that wasn't a place for him to see if he was worthy. That was a place for him to be elevated. See, once he isolated himself from the world and put himself in the wilderness, he killed all the things that could take his dopamine levels, right? He had no choice but to elevate. I'm telling you, brothers, this is life's hack. This is the cheat code, brothers. But the thing is this: you have to understand that the majority of men that roam this world, the majority of men that watch this channel, this only pertains to about 10 to 15% of you brothers, right? This is why I say that. The average man can't give up watching a season or two of football, right? He can't give up a season or two of watching basketball. The average man can't give up, scrolling through his phone on the hood while he's at work. He can't give up liking every Instagram thoughts picture. He can't give up going out every night having drinks and steaks for dinner. You know what I'm saying? But because he's just weak. I'm telling you, all brothers aren't built for this. But again, brothers, I'm telling you, this is life's hack.